how restaurants may need to operate post-pandemic, aka the bounce back, and foam containers has finally met its match. Hey, hope you had a great warm week in Canada. I'm Milash P, and this is Food Packaging TV. I said that weird. As some provinces lift lockdown measures, restaurants in Canada are starting to think more about the future and what it looks like once they're finally able to reopen for dine-in service. Well, they could look to Hong Kong for guidance. Black Sheep Restaurants, it's a hospitality group in HK, they recently released a COVID-19 Playbook. I've attached a link in the description below. This detailed document outlines the new protocols that restaurants will implement post the pandemic, and it may offer a glimpse into the future of food service in Canada. According to the playbook, protocols for waitstaff includes hand washing every 30 minutes, a ban on physical contact, so no handshake, high fives, or fist bumps, mandatory masks, daily temperature checks, and increased sanitation processes. Not only do they have protocols for their staff, but they also have included protocols for their patrons. Their diner protocols include a health declaration that guests must sign before entering the restaurants, turning away guests that refuse to complete this form, and Black Sheep reveals that they've turned away about 50 guests in one night. Temperature checks they have to do, physical distancing measures, i.e. only setting every other table. Do they mean something like this? Jokes aside, Black Sheep says it is important to stay optimistic but realistic about the future. They've also mentioned it's going to be a long time, if ever, that restaurant landscape will look the way it used to. And while Restaurants Canada VP James Rillett told Fresh Daily's reporter that it's unlikely that Canadian restaurants will resort to extreme measures like taking diners' temperatures, yet many are still planning to introduce some sort of new protocol. In Manitoba, all restaurants are opening patios this week, but will need to operate no more than 50% of the normal capacity in accordance with their governmental restrictions. Buffets and drink refills will also be scrapped, and anything on tables such as napkin dispensers or condiments must be sanitized between customers. In BC, restaurants are similarly gearing up for their reopening, although the exact date has not yet been determined. But speaking with Global News, Restaurant and Food Service Association President Ian Tostenson says the organization is submitting a plan to the government outlining measures that restaurants could take upon reopening. Suggestions include temperature checks for guests and staff, masks and gloves for front of house workers, and plexiglass barriers between booths. Something like this. Hand sanitizing stations, reduce restaurant seating capacity, and capping group sizes. But not all changes in the restaurant industry are negative. The pandemic has encouraged independent restaurants and meal prep companies in Canada to become more creative, with some offering services such as online cooking tutorials and DIY meal kits. You know, we're at a good point where we can stop and pivot to make strategic changes in the way food service in Canada operates. I always hear of restaurant operators speaking of how much miscellaneous products actually add up at their bottom line. And I'm talking about things like straws, napkin, condiments, dipping sauces, etc. Now, take China for example. While on my trips to China, I noticed that all the things that we are given here for free, that we take for granted, are things that you actually have to buy separately. May I have a napkin, please? Sure. Here's a fresh pack. Zero contamination, just like those travel facial tissue napkins. But once they sell you that, it's yours to keep. And I think it's quite a great idea. Restaurants can focus on what they do best, which is provide you quality food. For anything else, it would be extra. Once we become conscious that we have to spend our own money on things like napkins, where before we would just grab a thick stack and not even think twice if half goes to the waste, it should be considered a means to curb unnecessary waste and make people more conscious of how they use their products. Speaking of being more conscious, I think it's also time that when restaurants, especially in Toronto, are allowed to reopen, that we really take a look at their business and not what it provides them, but what their business allows them to provide others and the environment around them. Sure, we all need money, and I probably put it right up there next to oxygen, but let's face it, I'm not interested in being the richest person in the grave. No, I'd rather be known for leaving something greater behind, a gift for mankind and for the future. Which is why now is a great time for many restaurateurs to get acquainted with the brand new line of products by Earth2Go, a company in Missouri, United States that manufactures various compostable products, and the best part, they're PFAS free. Feast your eyes on Earth Maze, a product line that provides an environmentally responsible alternative to polystyrene, aka foam. These containers are made out of compostable PLA foam, and they call it Earth Maze. They have produced Earth Maze in tableware, takeout containers, and other food packaging products. They've been tested for compostability by the Compost Manufacturer Alliance, which is CMA, at Cedar Grove for the acceptance at commercially composting facilities. And so here are some of their amazing features. They're heat stable up to 43 degrees Celsius for storage and transport, cold resistance to -20, which makes them freezer safe. They're microwave safe, moisture resistant, grease resistant, PFAS free, BPI certified, and best of all, they can be customizable with different colors and weights. Their PLA hinge lid series comes in a competitive lineup of their 6x6, the 8x8 plan and 3 compartment, 9x9 plan and a 3 compartment. At present, they don't have the hoagie style, which is the equivalent of the FSC99 or 0188, which is huge in Toronto. But if there's demand, you never know, they might bring it to us. Their dinnerware line, which is presently not here, has a 6-inch, a 9-inch, a 10-inch, plain and 3 compartment, a 12-ounce bowl, and a 5-compartment lunch tray. They don't have a 7-inch, but honestly, if you have a 6 or a 7 available, you're gonna be okay. Here's one of the most underestimated lines. The processor tray liners. Essentially, around the perimeter of any grocery store you go to, you're gonna see tons of these foam meat trays that are used for various meats and some fruits and veggies. They're coming out with an extensive lineup to meet the demands of all processors and supermarkets, but here's a challenge. It still has to go to a commercial composting facility. And speaking of changes, throughout this entire video we'll be talking about changes. I too hope our government starts looking at areas where we can make changes, especially when it comes to recycling and composting, and have our systems updated so we can consciously use the compostable products that have been intended to serve the planet. Because as the saying goes, it takes 2 hands to clap. So how are the price points on these foam rivals? That's right, pick up the phone, call your distributor. It's private, confidential, one-on-one, and discreet.
It's private, confidential, one-on-one, and discreet. Discreet, 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 discreet.
Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Food Packaging TV. Thank you for joining me. My name is Elish P. Please feel free to do the subscribes, the likes, the shares, and of course, do the commentary. I want to talk to you. See you next week.